All right. Hello again. Take three. I started doing this video in event. Then I got confused. Then I put it on the Nourish Soul page, and then I went in and saw three, and I went to delete one, and it deleted them all. So this is day one, take three of Stack the Deck for Life You Love Masterclass. So sorry if you were watching before and you commented, and because now it's all gone bye-bye. But I'm back, and I said I didn't want to just leave a nothing there when I promised day one to start today. So welcome. It is what it is. So maybe there's something different I was meant to say, or maybe someone else was meant to catch it live now. I don't know, and it's okay. It is what it is. So that's like the best mantra lately that's been coming up. It is what it is. Like, it is what it is. And it's not good, not bad, but it is what it is, right? And when we just know it is what it is, then we can move on. There's no story. That's what it is. There's no story. When it is what it is, no story. And this has been a time of noticing the stories that are not serving and just been like, that's a story. That's just BS. All right. I'm digressing. Anyways, welcome if you're joining me live or you're joining me for the replay. I'm happy to have you. Say hello whenever you're joining. If you come on the replay, let's do #connection and let me know where you are watching from in the world. I'm in Massachusetts, and this is we had the full moon this week. The whole world had that, but we all have the equinox. And in Massachusetts right now, we're going into the fall. And if you're in the southern hemisphere, you are going into the spring. But it's so, I've been really craving more connection lately, and more like true connections and new connections, and even wanting to do like a Zoom where I can see people or see in person. But even connecting here on Facebook, where I know you can like at least respond back in the comments, I appreciate that, and I appreciate you for watching. So thank you for being here. So whenever you listen, whether you're listening now or later, you are listening for a reason, right? Something in this called to you. And I realized I didn't probably put a big description over it. Interesting. So the full moon was up this week, good for releasing, and now the equinox for balance. And so we're also in the 9-month, which I understand is more about feminine energy, but balance, right? We're learning to try to come into balance in the world. And sometimes the pendulum swings really far one way before, and then it will swing back in the other. And balance is like a work in progress. So as I was sitting in meditation, which I do every morning, I really start turning inside. I do some journaling, some quiet time. And that's what today's class, is about. We're going to be diving into the inner journey. So I was connecting with my adventurer part of myself. That's an adventurer, which is my adventurer archetype. I think I had seen a picture. I was going to post something on Facebook, and I saw a picture of me like doing acro yoga, and I was like, ooh, I remember doing that. And oh yeah, my adventure. Yeah, how does she show up? Oh yeah, she loves to have adventures in many ways, and that includes inner adventures, right? You might think of an adventure like, now the word adventure guide. So I'm also a guide, a teacher, but I'm a guide. I'm here to guide people. I'm not here to tell people what to do. I guide, right? It's like if I was going to guide you on a mountain, you take people like a guide takes somebody onto like a tour or something. You show them the sights, you show them the possibilities, but it's really up to them what they take in, what they enjoy, what they experience, right? And so, but I also take you, a guide that takes you on inner journeys, because that's so fun for me, right? And so I had this thing on my Facebook wall a few years ago, my background, I guess, and it was by Anais Nin. I must be a mermaid because I have no fear of depths and a great fear of shallow living. And when I read that, I'm like, yeah, that's me. I'm not a fluffy person, but I like fun though. I like play, right? Adventure, play. But also I like to dive deep. And I had this image earlier today as I was like thinking I love to like get to the root of things. And I shared this image on the first live I shared that is now gone, but I never really thought of it this way. But so I had some people help in my garden weeding a few years ago. My husband's like, he had a friend that was a worker, and some of his workers came, and they weren't really gardeners. And so they did like kind of like the easy, fast way. Let's get rid of the weeds. Let's just chop them off at the level of the ground. But all of the roots were still in there. So you can imagine what happens, right? When you do that with weeds, they just come back. So I like to dive down and get to the roots. And I had this image of like diving down into the ocean and like seeing like the plants, like the sea life floating the plants, and just like getting to the roots, and then this beautiful like sparkling energy. Like when you get to that root and you just transform it, right? You transform whatever it was. So anyways, I'm excited for this 3-day adventure that we're going to go on right now. So one of the things, so step one is really that inner journey and connecting with ourselves through stillness. And sometimes some people might hear even that word or stillness, and it might sound good, but it might sound like, oh, I don't know if I can do that. I mean, I had a yoga studio for a long time, and some people said Shavasana is the hardest thing for me to get quiet, right? We're used to being an active world, and it's not just physically. We've actually probably gotten less physically active, but it's more mentally active, right? There's so many choices out there and so many things, but what happens, it can get confusing, and it can get our own self, who we are inside, can get drowned out from that a little bit. And it's the same even excuse me, in our families or with the people that we love that are part of our life, that there's certain expectations and certain some things are givens, but some things are we're taking in, and it's like, is this really mine? Is this something I really want? And it can get this is where things can get a little bit blurred and uncertain, especially if we're used to just responding to other people's stuff, and that we can build those patterns when we're young, but these things start happening in the background and they're running unaware. But when you start to become aware, it's like, oh, wait a minute. So one of the things I've noticed that's been kind of helping people get more connected to themselves, because when you're connected to yourself, that's the first step to become aware of like what you love, what you want, what people are, we're changing all the time, right? So the pandemic, I have talked to so many people, even today and yesterday. Today I talked to someone just a couple hours ago, and she's in spiritual business, a beautiful business, but she was doing producing a lot of work, over a period of many years, and she said when the pandemic came, she realized she was exhausted from this, and she was grateful to have a break. And someone else, a massage therapist I went to yesterday, told me about someone else she knew that's a massage therapist that had been feeling like she wanted to step away from it a little bit, and then when the pandemic came, she realized when she couldn't do it for a while, she felt so much better. And she's like, so sometimes we just, we're doing things that maybe felt really good for quite a while. Like when I had my yoga business, I loved it for a long time. But then sometimes things change, and then we either aren't sure what to do, or we just don't even realize that it changed, right? We don't even acknowledge it to ourselves. And so that's part of what this is. And then also, people are being called more and more than ever to really understand and to live more authentically, to understand their purpose, understand themselves at a deeper, like a soul level, and just to really feel and be more authentic inside and out. So, as I said, stillness can kind of be a challenge for people, but it's important because that's where we really can go inside of ourselves, and it's different than maybe like a breath meditation or another meditation where it's really specific. Like I do a lot of guided meditations, some that I teach and some that I receive, etc. Or I might go in and do Akashic records or whatever, but this is what I'm talking about, is stillness. And what the beauty of stillness, and we'll be stepping back into like our higher self or witness self. That's like when you're truly present and you're not rewriting a story that's already there, right? Already there, just rewriting that story. That's what happens when we react, right? We're reacting. So when you step into stillness, it's like you see from a different point of view, and you are looking without all the filters that are there that we don't even realize are there, right? And this is like happens to everyone, right? We have all these filters from the way that, from our life, from just wherever they came from, organizations, growing up, etc. But stillness is receptive mode. It's feminine. It's allowing yourself to receive. And it doesn't mean you have to do something, right? Sometimes we might not want to know things because it's like, well, I don't know what to do but it's so powerful to just receive and understand. Like when I understood about like my adventure archetype, it was like, wow, that makes so much sense. And that's like, and like I said yesterday morning, I was really connecting, and I've known about that part of myself for quite a while, and it's like, oh yeah, it's like we have these aspects, and that a lot of them, some we know a little bit and some we don't know at all, but they're a little bit like, if you have a child, that they want to be seen and honored and acknowledged, and they're part of our journey as we're here as souls and we are humans. And so our souls came into the human body with these these tools or these guides that are different for each person. And as we start to be able to understand and connect with them, like it's a game changer. So coming into this, and then doing it together, like, because we have our families and our people that we work with, etc. When I went to energy medicine school, I remember they said, they don't, no creating any, like, no boy, no coupling relationships, no sexual relationships, and no business together, because that changes things, right? When we're doing business with people, or partnership or family or whatever, there's attachments there. There's kind of like the survival thing a little bit. So some of the best relationships or things I've had have been either in like groups where we all have a common purpose, or friends that I met through like energy medicine school, or that where they're not attached to what happens in my life. And so that's like a really powerful feedback, right? So, when we get a lot of input from like the external, what happens is we start to disconnect from ourselves. And I created my whole first business, like really just listening to myself, and maybe it was beginner's luck, I don't know, not really, but I just was like, this feels good. Yep, let me do this one step at I'm going to go online now, and I'm not sure if I know how to do this. And I started questioning myself, and I started looking outside of myself, and I took more classes and studied with more people, and I started thinking, that this person must know more than me. And they knew some things, but they didn't really know what my journey was to be. And so it got more confusing. As I see someone like ask an opinion, but every single person has a different opinion, right? And now more than ever, right, that's become really clear in a lot of things. So it's like the thing is to really, know yourself, know what you want. And that's the key to like, that creates, it's like where it begins, all of the magic. So, so just let's do a little check-in right now with yourself. And take a minute and take a breath in and close your eyes as you exhale and drop down into your heart. I see the heart is like the home of the soul. When I do Akashic Records readings and that, or anything, it's like I do work from the heart, right? It's the mind, the brain, the other part. That's where we can get confused and the confusing messages and memories. But when you drop down into the heart and the soul, that is where you connect in. So just if you imagine a meter in front of you, a meter from 0 to 100, and it's okay if you don't see it. And when I say about a number, you might just get a number and hear the number or see whatever it is, let it be. So imagine you have this meter in front of you, 0 to 100. How much of your energy, how much in your energy field right now, your body, your aura, how much of that is other people's energy? And just see what that number is. And if you want, share it in the comments below. And just let it be whatever it is. It's no judgment. You might be surprised. Like, this is something, sometimes we don't always even think, to do this. I remember the first time I did that was, I don't know, several years ago. I was working with a coach, and it was like one kind of powerful way to like really look and understand. And so I do like a clearing process pretty much, every day to like clear other people's energy out and to clear my energy, any energy I've sent out into the field. So actually, I'll do that with you now, which I did not do in the first video, so maybe that's why, right? To share this with you. So with your eyes closed, you just ask that any energy in your field that is not of you to now be cleansed and cleared in the light. And energy, any energy that is yours that you have extended out into other people, places, or situations, you can also ask that that be cleansed and cleared in the light as well. And so I'm also feeling to add, so everything in our life, it's like we reach energetic cords out to anything we're plugged into, and some things are feeding us, right? When I had my yoga studio at first, it was feeding my energy. And then some things, and then at a certain point it was draining. So just imagine right now you're pulling all the cords of energy that you have reached out into the world. You can plug them back in after. Just imagine you're bringing them and calling them back into yourself. And just notice what that feels like. So I was saying earlier about like the external expectations, right? And then the expectations we put on ourselves. So sometimes within our families, right? Our families will have expectations. Maybe our parents had expectations for us. And so I heard this story a few back about a plastic surgeon he came from a family that said, you have to be either a doctor or a lawyer to get an education. This is all really important. And that is what his family believed, and they felt like they were doing the best thing for him. But that didn't feel like the best thing for him. So he went in to become a plastic surgeon because one of the aspects he had of himself was an artist. He had the heart of an artist. And so if you think about like the shadow side, or the story of the artist, right, it can be the starving artist, right? And so that's a real shadow side of the archetype of the addict. That was interesting. The artist. And so, of course, his family wouldn't want him to be an artist because you cannot make a lot of money. It was the belief or whatever it was in his family. And so instead, he was miserable in what he was doing. And now there are probably plastic surgeons in the world that are artists and other pieces, and they love it. They love what they're doing, and that's where their artistry comes through, right? Because our aspects, like my adventure or whatever, that can come through so many ways. It's up to me. There's not a hard line way it should be, right? That's a part of being in a human body, is we get to play and explore. But for this particular person, he was not very happy because, he was kind of miserable in what he was doing. Personally, if I'm going to go to someone, I want them to be happy and joyful in what they're doing. It makes such a huge difference when someone is really like, people ask about their purpose, and their purpose is not a job. Like, I remember going to, my mother was in the hospital a couple of years ago for a little while, and I remember going, and there was like a maintenance worker, a guy there, and he would come in the room, clean up, say hello, and he was a healer. Like, he was so healing. He brought this amazing energy with him, and he didn't think, oh, I'm just here to clean the floors. He was, living his purpose, what he was doing, like just really lifting people up, and it was so cool and amazing. So, so if we're ever trying to be like something that we're not for someone else, it's never going to feel right, right? There's a part, we all want to be like a child. We have aspects of ourselves we all want to be seen and acknowledged. And what happens if there's a part of us that we are not acknowledging or seeing in some way, what happens is it starts to get louder and louder. And sometimes it can come out sideways. I know it's happened to me before I started to understand more about all of this stuff, and it was kind of messy, right? So it's like, and sometimes that can look like addictions, right? Sometimes it can look like, how can I numb out from this because I don't feel good? If you're like trying to push a part of yourself away, even if it's unconsciously to fit into something, it's never going to feel good, right? And then on the other side of it, it could be, so what was it? It's either numbing out or sometimes striving to somehow fix yourself or fix something. And we never need fixing, ever, never. So just take that in. We never need fixing, right? It's just about like supporting and loving. Like our bodies know how to heal themselves given the right circumstances, right? And it's not to say like if you broke a bone, it might need some help to reset. I'm not saying it doesn't need, that you can't help or support. Just saying, it's like, don't make yourself wrong. So why am I getting this thing? Check my internet connection. Okay, all right. So once you start to understand this, it makes so much more sense. So when you come into stillness, it's the first place you can start to connect with yourself. Like I said, I wanted more connection. Well, the external connection and the internal connection are very connected. Okay, that was brilliant. But you connect with your own inner voice and your own wisdom. And so everything inside of you. And one of my gifts is to kind of help connect people, help people remember those things. Help, like when my kids were small. So I had when I was really young, two, my parents got divorced. Didn't see my father after that. I don't have traumatic memories of that, but I lived with my grandparents, my brother, my mother, and I. There were 5 adults and 2 kids, and my grandmother stayed home and raised us when my mother went to work, and it was just like I felt seen and loved and well taken care of, and I just felt like I could be me, and it was amazing. And then later on, when my mother got 7 kids and 2 adults, so life was a little bit different, but I had this experience of really being seen when I was younger. And so later, when I had kids of my own, It just became really important thing to me to let people be seen and valued. And so when I was raising my kids that are adults now, it's like I watched to see who they were, what did they love, and nurtured that instead of trying to have them fit into a box. And that is like so magic. And that's what, it's just a gift that I have nurtured, and that I love to share with people. So, as I said, since we were children, we've had a lot of influence by, adults and institutions and whatever throughout our life. We're still getting lots of influence depending what we're plugging into, right? And I was mentioning those cords earlier. So, I've plugged into certain things and I'm like, ooh, I don't want to plug into that. But then I've even plugged into stuff that was more aligned with my beliefs, but it still was like, that feels a little yucky too. So it's just starting to notice what's going on. And then also there are parts of ourselves that, we made choices because it was the best at the time to keep us safe. But now some of those things are actually preventing us from fully being ourselves and living and doing the things that we want. So behind the scenes now there's like parts of ourselves that we created or used for survival, and that we are unconscious of. Usually they're running unconsciously, but once you start to make them, you can't not see it anymore. So, and we ultimately, we can't control other people or situations, but we are ultimately the ones that are in charge, and we choose how to respond. Like we've always had that ability, and now, like, it's amazing to start to see it. So this is the path, right? The path to freedom. So we're going to dive into stillness. So you can take a breath in and then close your eyes and drop down into your heart. And find your center. Find your heart. And if you are commenting, I don't see them now, I'll come back and respond after. So drop down into your heart, into this place of stillness. And I was getting this vision earlier, so if you ever think about it, I was talking about that mermaid, and maybe that's why this came up again today, because if you think about going underwater, right? You go underwater, it's silent. It's like the world is silent.